right. Well, thank you everyone very much for joining us today for our Q4 demo day. I think we have a great session planned for all of you today. For those who don't know me, I'm Chris Lustrino. I'm the founder and CEO of Kingscrowd. As many of you already know, right, our goal at Kingscrowd is to provide as much education and supportive tools to enable you to be a confident and thoughtful investor in the equity crowdfunding markets. And demo days for me, I think are one of the coolest ways we get to do that because we take all of our data, all of the insights that we collect and analyze and create our programmatic rating algorithm from, but we bring it all to life with actual founders pitching us. And all of these founders are curated by our data, right? We're trying to find some of the best in breed that are actively raising capital that you can partake in, but bring to life how great that curation process is and help you understand the value we can provide in identifying promising investment opportunities. So I first want to thank our sponsors, Pacaso and David Willbrand. He is the Chief Legal Officer and EVP at Pacaso, and he's also a former Techstars executive advisor in San Francisco. And for those that don't know, Pacaso is quite literally the category creator of fractional vacation ownership, home ownership, and they've built a billion-dollar company. And very relevant to all of you, Pacaso pulled off one of the most successful Reg A raises of all time, with over $72 million raised from over 15,000 investors. So we're super glad to have David on today to take questions from our pitching founder or to ask questions to our pitching founders and represent really one of the major bright spots in our industry here in 2025. And in a minute here, I will bring him up to have a quick conversation for you all to learn more about Pacaso, which we think is a really interesting alternative investment platform that allows you to be able to access potentially investing in vacation home ownership, which I think is a really, really interesting asset class to learn more about and very relevant to all of our investors. We love identifying those types of opportunities for you all. We're also joined by our senior investment associate, Teddy Lyons, who will be joining us, who will highlight some of the things we analyze in each of these companies that we will be having on today. And most importantly, we want to hear from you, right? So please drop your Q&As into the Q&A section so we can make sure to try and get to as many of them as possible. Today, we have three presenting companies. Each will pitch for 5 minutes, followed by insights from Teddy, as well as Q&A from David and the crowd. And additionally, we're going to be providing free access to each of these companies' reports today so you can get deeper insights into each one and see what Kingscrowd is all about. So to kick it off, I'm going to dive in with David here to learn a little bit more about Pacaso. David, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, Chris, it's great to be here. Thanks for the opportunity and for the introduction.
Absolutely. It's a real privilege to have you on, David. You obviously have a really, really interesting background, frankly, in startups and on the legal side of things, and now working at Pacaso as well for several years. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'd love to get into Pacaso a bit.
Yeah, sure. I would be happy to. By training and subject matter expertise, I am a startup company lawyer. I have worked with founders and entrepreneurs and with the sorts of investors that invest in founders and entrepreneurs since 1996. That's when I graduated from law school. That was the beginning of the dot-com bubble, and that source of gravity sucked me into it, and I've never left. I have toggled back and forth between industry and between law firms. And Pacaso, of course, as you mentioned, is where I sit now. I worked with Spencer Raskoff and Austin Allison, who are the co-founders of Pacaso. The company itself was formally incorporated and organized January 1, 2020. And I was their outside lawyer at that point in time. And then I came on full-time April of 2021. And I've been there ever since. So as you mentioned, I'm the chief legal officer. I'm also an EVP, and in that capacity, I pick up other elements of the organization. I oversee people and talent, the HR function. I oversee capital markets, which is particularly relevant to the sorts of things we'll be talking about today. And I also oversee corporate development.
Phenomenal. Yeah, you have a deep bench of experience and are certainly a powerhouse when it comes to being a startup counsel. And frankly, I would say, where Pacaso is today, you guys are fairly advanced stage in terms of progressing the business forward. Tell us a little bit for those who don't know. I think many on the call probably do have at least some sense of what Pacaso is all about, but give us a little bit of an overview of what Pacaso does.
Sure. I'd be happy, and I could spend the whole hour talking about it, but I promise, Chris, I will be brief. Since I'm no longer in private practice and I don't bill, by the minute anymore, I tend to be much more efficient in my speaking. What Pacaso does is it really seeks to balance out the asymmetry that exists in the luxury vacation marketplace. And many of the best startups that I've worked with do that. Some are truly, blue sky, changing the way we even think about the world. But most startups, if you really boil them down, they find an inefficiency in the free market economy and they create a bridge to fix it. And that's what Pacaso does. The data shows that most, virtually all, second home owners only use their home 4 to 6 weeks a year. So 100% of the purchase price, 100% of the carrying costs, but they're only using it 4 to 6 weeks a year. The idea behind Pacaso is let's take that as asymmetry and let's make it symmetrical. So if you only use it an eighth, how about you only pay for an eighth? And that's the basic value proposition. And the entire company grew and expanded from that central premise and thesis. And we've gotten a lot of traction in the marketplace, and it really resonates.
Well, Spencer Escoff, for those who don't know, was the co-founder of Zillow, which helped reinvent how we all purchase our primary home. And now I would argue that this platform is doing a really wonderful job of helping folks buy that secondary home, that vacation home. And I think that's so, so interesting. Um, David, one thing that you guys did that I am obviously a huge backer and believer of is pulled off one of the most successful Regulation A offerings of all time, raising over $70 million, I think 72 or $73 million, which is phenomenal. As kind of being on the chief legal officer internally, seeing the Reg A process, I'm going to put you a little on the spot here. So often people say, oh, if you're raising in this space, right, like there's less rigor around the deal, this, that, and the other thing. And my argument has often been, I think if you look at the process of going through Regulation A or even Reg CF, it, it's far more exposing than what you necessarily provide in a traditional private market offering. Would love, again, because we have so many investors on the call today, to just talk about some of the things that you found interesting in the process that could be beneficial to investors in terms of disclosure and information that's being shared that you historically in your 30 plus years have not necessarily seen in traditional private markets.
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. And I will say that I have become an absolute advocate and evangelist for this sort of approach, and doing so from in the trenches. So Picasso, to be totally transparent, was initially structured to follow the classical path. We raised $230 million plus or minus in venture capital in 2020, 2021, and into 2022. And the idea was you raise venture capital, you continue to fuel growth through that source of capital, and then ultimately you go public the traditional way on the S1, or you sell, an M&A event. That becomes the exit or the liquidity event. As we thought about it more and started thinking about different alternatives and avenues to financing, the more we talked about Reg A and the more we explored Reg A, the more we got excited about Reg A because we felt like at Pacaso, we are democratizing access to second home ownership. So the idea of democratizing access to the cap tables of high growth oriented startups makes perfect sense. There's a continuity there and a through line. And we liked that. And we like the idea of giving retail investors an opportunity to invest, kind of pre-IPO in a way and that's what Reg CF does. That's what Reg A does in a way that traditionally wasn't available. It was locked. You did the Reg D thing with your venture capital investors, and then you went public. Your traditional retail investor wouldn't have access or opportunity to play, and we wanted to provide that. What I would say to those who might look sideways at deal terms or structure, SEC oversight is real. I mean, the work that goes into the development of an offering circular, and pressing publish on that offering circular and having it available through Edgar, it's not a small undertaking, and people need to be ready for that. What we did at Pacaso, and I really have loved to see the impact of this, is we treated it as a feature and not a bug. Okay, so a lot of people look at what's involved with Reg CF or they look at what's involved with Reg A and they think, oh my gosh, do I want to share that kind of information publicly? Do I want to put myself through those sorts of steps? Do I want to have to undertake that kind of disclosure? And what I would suggest is it makes you a better company. It creates internally and externally exactly the sorts of lines of communication and disclosure that you should embrace and that you want the public to see. Both, the good, what you're really excited to talk about, and places where maybe you're struggling a little bit. That's okay. I mean, no business is operating at all cylinders at all times, and this gives you a chance to chat about it, put it in context. And so I'm a proponent even of that piece of it that most people see as being the negative. I do think it can be a positive. And through the offering circular and then through the public filings that we've made since, I'm really pleased with the way that it's forced us to build the kind of apparatus and the muscle and the strength and the discipline and the rigor to be that sort of a business and that sort of a reporting company. And I think we're better because of it. So, you certainly have all the benefits of crowdfunding, which gives you access to a different pool of investors that you wouldn't otherwise get. But I would also encourage people to not necessarily just be turned off or see that other piece of it, the disclosure piece of it, as a negative. I suggest it's a positive.
I love it. I certainly couldn't agree with you more, and you heard it here first. For those who are interested, you certainly can go check out Pacaso.com and learn more about what they're up to. Phenomenal company. I've been really interested in them for many years and have been a big follower. Additionally, I did drop a link, a YouTube link to our past videos with the Pacaso team, learning more about their Reg A offering and also the business if you want to learn more as well. Again, I think all investors on here, you'll certainly find it interesting. So David, thank you again for being here. Psyched to hear your questions. I think you're perfectly aligned to be able to ask some really thoughtful questions to our pitching companies today. So today here we have two really interesting healthcare companies and a robotics company. They're all backed by Kingscrowd Capital or are under consideration for investment from Kingscrowd Capital. So we kind of think of these as top tier potential investment opportunities. So with that, let's get on to the show. And first up, we are going to have Macrovey, a robotics company, and Matt will be joining us to give us the pitch. Matt, you are up.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Wonderful. Good to see you, Matt.
You too. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Let me get this PowerPoint pulled up. All right, so yeah, I'm Matt Lubinsky, Director of Commercial and Defense Business Development at Macrovey Automation. Macrovey, as a holding company, has been around for close to 40 years. The majority of that has been through a sister company called Asbico that did the installation of material handling systems into facilities like Amazon, FedEx, Walmart. So those huge warehouses you see on the highway, everything that goes in there to move materials, we were installing. What we kind of found over the past couple of years is that a lot of these processes in the warehouse, they're slow, they're not optimized. There's pain points like labor shortages, and overall just having the manual movement of materials and picking orders in a facility just going to be slow. So over the past 3 years, we've been kind of developing the Macrovey automation. So this is finding ways to basically automate the processes that are going on in these facilities. Over the past 3 years, we've had significant investment from that sister company, Asbico. We built a fully operational demo center in Atlanta, and through the development of these systems, have won two supply chain excellence awards over the past 2 years. So what we've done is basically taken all of these processes we find in a normal warehouse and completely automate them using robotics. So utilizing partner robotics, we kind of built these ideas of how you can automate a warehouse process using AGV robots, AMRs, and 6-axis. So the bulk of what we do really is the storage of materials using robots moving bins around, and then picking and kitting orders using 6-axis robots. So I'll kind of go over how these products work, but all of the videos you see here are actual systems that we have in our demo center in Atlanta, which is a great selling tool for customers to be able to actually see them working. For the market verticals that we focus on, even though we can technically, make systems for anyone who needs materials moved, these are the four that we see kind of as the lowest hanging fruit. Obviously, warehousing, your fulfillment centers, warehouses, manufacturing facilities, anyone that needs to move materials around a facility is a great market for us. Defense is something that we're really excited about. We actually won an Air Force contract this year to develop a system that's potentially going to be going into a base in Charleston. Right now, we're working on getting the actual investment money from the government for that, which obviously runs slow. But the idea of being able to store and kit plane parts, any materials needed within the depots or warehouses in the US, but also, as you'll see later on, we have mobile warehouse applications where we can actually ship these warehouses in shipping containers overseas to forward operating bases. Anywhere that needs to be deployed, we can have basically automated warehouses set up. Construction, we actually have an ERP that I'll talk about shortly, but also we have systems that basically can store and move materials needed for job sites, again, in shipping containers right there on site. And then finally, education. We do create internal robotics courses for customers, but also students in colleges and high schools. But also a request from Miami-Dade College was actually to build a mini warehouse at their campus. So that's another thing that we're currently developing, is having these mini warehouses on college campuses. So the backbone of all of this is our software suite called Tekoa. And this is 1.2 million lines of code that basically can run every aspect of our customer's business. So we have our warehouse control system, which is pretty much the brains of the robotic systems. It links together the robots API with the end customer system, whatever that may be. We have an ERP system that we actually built out of necessity. We couldn't find one that ran our business, so we built one ourselves. That can run everything from sales to quoting, live earned value, material tracking, HR, and payments through accounting and finance. This whole system also uses machine learning to optimize processes. So for instance, if there's a certain item that's being picked a lot, our system kind of learns, okay, this is a very important item. I'm going to make sure that it's really close to where it needs to be to kind of speed up processes. So as a customer, keeps running their system, our system kind of learns the nuances and the data flow of what's going on to further optimize the system. And all of this we provide as software as a service to our customers, so there isn't really this upfront cost. We do provide it as a lease deal. So to kind of go over two of our types of products, we have custom systems. This is where we really go in, talk to a customer, learn if there's specific pain points, something they want automized, and we build a custom system for them. So this can be, kind of like your larger fixed systems versus the mobile ones. But basically, we go in and we find out what we could do to optimize the ROI for these robotics and to optimize the processes. Another thing we can do also is if a customer has a specific need, let's just say drone assembly. Using our robots and our software, we can actually figure out ways to kind of do these out-of-the-box ideas of drone assembly versus just traditional material handling, which is something we actually are working on with a defense company. We also have more off-the-shelf type products. These are ones that really are kind of like built, not specific to a customer. Oops. These are kind of like off-the-shelf products. So the ones that can be delivered to a customer and up and running within a day. Again, the mobile aspect is something that I think we're really kind of proprietary with. And the idea that we can build these warehouses and shipping containers on top of trailers and have them shipped anywhere across the country or even the world. So again, this is all really pretty much launched this year. So 2026 is kind of where we're looking at to really do a big sales push. With that said, again, we already have an Air Force contract. We have proposals out to companies like Bimbo and Cencora, which are global bakery and pharmaceuticals. Northrop Grumman, we're developing the drone, and just a lot of great conversations. So there is a lot of excitement about these systems. So we're really excited about 2026 to really get that push moving forward. And then just lastly, I think without going over all these, the two that are really big in my eyes, the demo facility we have in Atlanta is a huge selling point. Like once we get customers in front of these systems, seeing it, even getting their products moving through the system, it really kind of gets the wheel moving in their head of how this would work in their facilities. So the biggest two on my mind are the additional demo assets. If we can get additional these facilities across the country so everyone doesn't have to travel to Atlanta, that would be a great way to get in front of more eyes. And then trade shows. We've had these systems at 2 trade shows, Modex and ProMat, and it gets a lot of attention when you're seeing these robots moving around and moving bins and picking and kitting. So the ability to get in front of more trade shows is a big one for me. So these are kind of what we're looking at using our future funds for. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Matt. Super, super interesting. So I'm going to turn it over to David to ask the first question, and then let's get Teddy on up here who could provide some thoughts and insights.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Chris. Great presentation, Matt.
Thank you.
So just a question for you, and it really gets to what you're biting off. You talked about you've got there are software elements, there are obviously hardware elements. You've got several different market verticals. You're also providing custom solutions and you're providing standard solutions. So that seems like a lot to me, rather than the classic notion of just, kind of pick one beachhead and just hit that in a very specific way and then from there build. Could you talk about that a little bit and maybe get me comfortable with the sense that I love your vision, but maybe it should be more done serially rather than in parallel?
No, that's totally fair. And a lot of these products have just basically come from conversations with potential customers. All the videos you saw, those were kind of the initial ideas we have of these custom systems where we would go in, be integrators, and design something for a customer. When we started talking to customers, we had some people say like, well, I'd love if something could just be delivered and show up to my site. I don't need anything custom. I just need something to store materials and then send them somewhere else. Um, so with that, we're using the same robots through our robotic partners, and we're using the same software for all these systems. So the only thing that's really different is just like how it's integrated and how it's developed. So for instance, you saw a video of a robot moving bins around in this little room. It was actually a trailer. We can take that exact same setup, move it into a shipping container, and have an entirely different product. So yes, having kind of like one specific thing, it would be nice. But just from the conversations we've had with customers, there's just kind of this well-rounded need of different types of integrations for it.
Yeah, and Matt, I just to be clear, I think that's a very fair answer. I received the same question at Pacaso, and I have over the period of our existence, and we always point to it as an advantage. It's again, to borrow the word, a feature and not a bug. It's a competitive advantage that we can handle this kind of complexity, and it makes us better and stronger in the market. And I think that's what you're suggesting.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for that question.
Outstanding. Teddy, would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. Hey Matt, great to see you
You
again.
too.
Yeah, so I'm someone that I've always been, quite bullish on robotics and automation in manufacturing, especially given the, as you mentioned, kind of big shortage of labor in the manufacturing space and warehouse space in the US. And we've seen some very large humanoid companies address these pain points. Companies like Figure AI, Apptronic, raising at massive valuations, in building specific hardware solutions in the form of humanoids for manufacturing jobs. But I came across another company, and please excuse me, I'm a nut for humanoid stuff. But there's another company I came across in that space called Skilled AI, and they're doing a similar thing where they're kind of building a robot agnostic, humanoid agnostic brain that can just be kind of applied to any different hardware. And it kind of made me think like that's like a bigger commercial opportunity in giving a kind of robot agnostic software solution, and it's really the same as what you're doing in this kind of warehouse automation space. Robot agnostic can work with any robotics OEM, and more flexible and affordable for the smaller to medium warehouses that are I think like the numbers like 70 to 80% of small to medium sized warehouses aren't automated.
Hmm.
Um, so that's what really initially drew me to your company and what you're doing. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about your sister company, Abesco, and sort of how the last 40 years of doing material handling and installations for warehouses kind of puts you in a competitive advantage for building automated solutions for that same space.
Yeah. So all that time spending in warehouses, you really see every intricacy. I'm blanking on that word. Whatever.
Intricacy, yeah.
You see everything that goes on in a warehouse. You see how, people are really relied on to do pretty much every task in there, from going and finding a material in the racks to pulling it out to bringing it over to an area, picking together orders. Even at this point, like, taping up boxes, shipping labels, all that now can be automated. And just the thought is that when we spent time in those warehouses, during the installation time, we saw how much went into actually installing these kind of complex systems that we could do in the exact same time, if not quicker, using these robotics. But also just kind of hearing the feedback from the employees in those facilities, the people running those facilities. It's very mundane tasks. You have to worry about sick days. You have to worry about, breaks. And just being able to kind of run a facility 24/7. And again, one thing we always like to say is we're not trying to get rid of people and like have people lose jobs and replace them with robots, but we can actually just shift those jobs to be focused on, how to troubleshoot the robotics, how to repair them, how to program them. And these are all things that we, build courses for that we can provide to our customers so they can train their employees. So, I think people don't want to spend their day on an assembly line putting things in boxes. So that's kind of, I guess another selling point for us, for our customers. And I will, just to
Terrific.
your point, Teddy, sorry,
Please.
about the robotic diagnostic software. It's actually funny you bring that up because we did have a customer we were pitching, building a system for them. They're like, we don't need this. We have, a robotic arm that we use. What we need though is a software that can talk to, a robot we want to use. And so we went into like, you can just take our software and use it for, license it to you. So that's something that's coming up that we didn't really see as a business case, but I think it might, like you said, be something that's growing in the future.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Matt. This is awesome. And one other thing I do want to mention in our analysis that I thought was interesting is while, conceptually this is really, really cool. First off, you do have a parent company that's been in the industry forever, right? Over 40 years. This was started up a few years ago, this business line and this business, Macrovey. You already have, in 2024, you had $5.8 million in revenue. So this isn't a concept, right? This is something that's actually in market. And your parent company is actually quite helpful in helping to generate a pipeline and providing access to potential clients who very much fit with what you all are doing. I think that's a major leg up. This isn't like a conceptual robotics company. We have a real business, we have a real pipeline, and we already have millions in sales on an annual basis, which is just in terms of de-risking the potential investment. For me, I think is really interesting. So anyway, Matt, thank you so much for being here. Really,
Thank
really
you all.
appreciate it. Next up, we're going to have Chad from Koios Medical. Really excited to have him up. And as a reminder, please drop your questions into the Q&A that you'd like us to ask. And additionally, if you go to the resource section, which you can find on the bottom bar of Zoom, you will be able to access all of the reports for each of these companies on Kingscrowd for free, as long as you create a free account, which doesn't require a credit card or anything like that, really just a name and an email. And hopefully you find that helpful in getting more analysis and insights into how all of this works. So yeah, excited to have Koios Medical up here. And Chad, welcome to the show.
Thank you much. Let me hit share here. Chris, good to see you.
You too.
Teddy, David, pleasure. Audio's good?
Audio's great.
Video's good?
Video looks good too, and slides look good as well.
All right, coming at you live from Koios Medical headquarters here in New York City. Thanks for this opportunity. Chris, good to see you again. Teddy as well. And really excited to not just tell the Koios Medical story, but also build upon the success that we've had over the last couple of years. It's good to be back with our friends here at Kingscrowd. I'm going to start with the why. Saving time and saving lives. What is it? Hang on. It's smart ultrasound. We're disrupting and transforming cancer diagnosis globally. Traction, we're already trusted in many leading hospitals here in the US and around the world. US News and World Report puts out their top 30 cancer hospitals. We're in more than half of those already. We were very proud and excited to be named a Newsweek World's Best Digital Health Company. Many of the experts around the world rely on our software, whether it's Mount Sinai, Mass General, Cleveland Clinic, and others. As I mentioned, it's not just domestic traction, it's a global footprint. I'll get into that with our distribution strategy. We even have conversations going on with health ministries because AI is truly here to stay. And there's new ways of practicing medicine that are coming to hospitals and exam rooms where you are today and around the world. Why are we raising? Accelerate our sales through a long sales cycle that happens in healthcare. Healthcare does not do anything without an exhaustive level of experimentation and validation. We as patients all appreciate that. Very different purchasing cycle in healthcare. We're expanding, as I mentioned, internationally based on demand and high value markets that we're targeting. We're building upon the platform that's already proven to be successful. We have R&D going on to go both deeper in cancer diagnosis and wider across the human anatomy using ultrasound. And the last point that's relevant to this conversation is we're raising through customers. We're raising from a community versus venture capital and PE. Around the world, people ask, when is Koios going public? When can I invest? And we want to create that opportunity. We already have over 20 physicians that have already invested in the company. So I'm not going to spend the time in my 5 minutes here, but if you've not seen this video, I encourage you to look at it. If you've ever seen SpaceX catch a rocket, that is AI and data doing something that was previously unthinkable. Well, if SpaceX is using AI to catch rockets, Koios is using AI to catch cancer. Another fun way of using Koios, and this is a demo day. So since most of you out there are probably not sonographers, not radiologists, you're probably not rocket scientists, but if you've ever used Shazam and you've held up your phone and go, wow, how does it do that? How does it digitize sound? And you tap it, and yep, there it is. It's the Beatles. Let it be. How does it do that? Imagine digitizing sound, but in the form of an exam. Sound waves that create a picture. And with the push of a button, being able to say, hey, that's suspicious. We need to catch that cancer early when it's curable. Or you know something? You got nothing to worry about. Let it be. We have a massive problem, folks. Cancer incidence is on the rise. Variety of reasons we won't get into today. But more and more young people are also presenting with cancers more than ever in the past. Breast cancer, thyroid cancer, both of those standard of care around the world is an ultrasound. Whenever you think mammography and breast, a lot of people go get a mammo, they're actually getting an ultrasound. When you get an exam of your neck, it's an ultrasound. We have this rising incidence and we have a workforce contraction, a global crisis domestically and overseas. We have a shortage of physicians and sonographers. Something's got to give. We think that this is a $2 billion global opportunity, and it's going to reshape the diagnosis of cancer. It is already out there saving lives, doing an AI analysis and increasing early cancer detection in double digits. So as a demo, I'm going to show you traditional ultrasound. An exam is acquired, a human sits down, does an interpretation, reads into a report, sends it off to PACS. This is a cumbersome workflow, can take 30 to 45 minutes. There's a high degree of variation from human to human and even intra-human variability, and it's moderate accuracy. Now imagine smart ultrasound, code into the exam, allowing the AI engine trained on over 3 million images to present the end in mind, a draft, complete, accurate, and billable report without dictation or typing in minutes or seconds. The workflow is more efficient, the variability goes to zero, and your accuracy goes significantly higher. So this is what you see. This is the demo. This is the draft of what is presented to a physician. And look at the misdiagnosis that is eliminated. So in the interest of time in the demo, it's embedded on hardware in the exam room on GE machines coming to Philips and Siemens. The traction we're seeing is triple digit. That's analyses growing month over month and cumulatively over time. The trend is our friend. We have SQL pipelines that's quadruple what our company burn is. We're growing at about 300% year over year. We have an international distribution network of 23 distributors, including GE and Philips, and we are forecasting growing from the current total contract value of $4 million at a pretty sizable clip over the course of the next few years. Key metrics, high customer retention, net revenue retention over 100%. Our ARR is at $3 million. We're raising $2 million now on WeFunder with our friends at Kingscrowd leading that round. It's a pre-money of $90 million, up from last year of $60 million. Why Koios in summary? It's a great team that's in the lead. We are the first mover and the market leader. We have robust evidence, 18 peer-reviewed, published journal articles, excellent gross margins. Our software is reimbursed, offering a compelling ROI to the business buyer within a healthcare institution. As you can see, we're on cart, integrated in the AI and the radiology ecosystem, and it's a global market, and we're already making an impact on patients today. And my final why, Koios, our customer testimonials. We just finished a conference where customers were talking about it more than we were. And when we talk about product market fit, we talk about product market fanatics. Patients are expecting this, they're even demanding it, and we think that smart ultrasound is the future. Thank you.
Outstanding. Thanks, Chad, so much. Really appreciate it. Obviously, we've been followers, investors in, and we'll have some exciting news to share on that front too, shortly in Koios as well. But David, would love to hear your thoughts and questions for Chad.
Sure. Chad, great presentation. Very informative. Really enjoyed it. The Beatles reference was a nice little cherry on top. And you landed it. So just a quick question. Does your software, does your technology, is it loaded? Is it implemented through existing hardware, or does it require the hospital or the radiologist or the practice to purchase new hardware to support your system?
It's 100% software. It's vendor agnostic. It's able to ingest data from new machines, old machines. We started training data back in 2012. So it's independent of any hardware. Although it does ship on some GE machines, soon to be shipping on others.
Yeah, and that seems like a really positive thing, just in terms of removing potential friction from the sales process. I appreciated you speaking to the long sales cycle. I think it's just good to acknowledge that and not pretend that it doesn't exist or somehow you're going to bend the time-space continuum so it doesn't. How do you wrestle with that? How in particular do you address that? What's just part of the system? How do you break through?
Yeah, several things. One is, we obviously have our ideal customer profile. There's a lot of independent imaging centers that can make decisions much more quickly that we can prioritize. We know that big academics can take much longer. We've handpicked many of our distributors who have incumbent relationships with many of those market leaders, so that really shrinks the sales cycle. When we can walk into a hospital that has a long-standing relationship, say, for example, with the GE distributor or the Philips distributor. So those two factors right there really help us shrink the sales cycle. But to be perfectly candid, AI is new to many of these organizations. And as much as we're trying to shrink it, they're trying to expand it. There's new AI councils. They're very risk averse. So we've also engineered some things into the solution to mitigate risk, so that we can actually get through the approval processes more quickly.
Got it. Great. Thank you.
Excellent. And I'll turn it over to Teddy here in a second. But actually, before we do that, one question from the crowd. Can you touch on competition in the space? With huge opportunities in a space like this, I suspect there are other large companies competing.
Yes. The competition right now for us specifically is much more for bandwidth. If you look on a modality by modality basis, say, for example, AI for mammograms. Mammograms are essentially an X-ray. There's a lot of players in that space. There's a lot of people in CT. There's a lot of people in chest X-rays, example. However, ultrasound is pretty unique. We have a very limited amount of competition. One player formerly out of Australia that was just acquired in the thyroid space, Samsung, great maker of phones. They also make ultrasound equipment, and they have a product in the breast space. There's a few things that we've done that have helped really eliminate or minimize competition in terms of many of our patents and our first mover advantage. So we anticipate more players will come in, but we're the one that's currently the market leader, and we have a pretty significant lead and a pretty significant moat when it comes to competition.
Terrific. I'll turn it over to Teddy.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Chad, great to see you again. As Chad mentioned, yes, so Kingscrowd Capital, we are leading Koios's new round on WeFunder launching very soon. So yeah, we're really excited for that. And when evaluating AI native companies in sort of today's AI world, where the barrier to entry for software development has been reduced so much, there are really like two pieces of defensibility I look for in AI companies and software companies in general these days, and that is data advantage and deep integration into customer workflows. So data advantage, I think Kios, Chad, you just mentioned, 3 million images used to train your models and for identifying cases of cancer. So I think that's a huge advantage you have. And secondly, just in terms of integration into customer workflows, you sort of mentioned this briefly, but and how you're soon to be available on GE healthcare scanners, which really just kind of removes that friction of getting radiologists to use ultrasounds to you use AI in ultrasounds to diagnose cancer. So those are the kind of the two big things I saw in Kios in at the beginning when we first invested in you a couple years ago, and I was wondering if you could touch on sort of what's changed, what's the progress that's been made since your last crowdfunding round on WeFunder.
Terrific. Thanks, Teddy. So again, we have our ear to the ground. Once a year, we go to the FDA and push out enhancements to the engine. But 3 or 4 times a year, we push out software independent of the FDA that's almost 100% things that our customers have asked for. So they've asked for enhancements to the workflow. They've asked us to go deeper. We're moving into the detection realm rather than just decision support. One of the impediments when we were put initially first on the GE machine, it was tethered to a server. Now we're shipping it bare metal off the factory floor out to customers around the world. So just to make the installation more streamlined, easier for the salespeople, easier for IT setup, that's a big advancement starting next year. We're constantly ingesting more data. That's sharpening the saw. It's allowing us to extend across the anatomy. And I'm super excited to showcase some stuff in the next few months.
Outstanding. Well, Chad, thank you so much. We're psyched to see your round get going here out of testing the waters in the next couple of days. We're excited to be a lead, which is the first time we're actually doing a lead in a WeFunder round, which I think is really, really cool. So we've ingested the data prior to launch so that we could actually be the lead of the round as a follow-on investment in our already made investment a year or two ago at this point. And one of the leading factors for that for us is really seeing them moving from development into commercialization, which is dramatically harder than anyone ever thinks when they're in the medical sphere. And you guys are breaking through, and we're starting to see you really have that uptick in traction. So congrats to you all. Chad, wonderful to see you as always. And next up, we have TMA Precision Health. Josh, you are up.
Great. Let me share my screen here, and we will get going. All right. Pretty sure you can see my screen?
Yes.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thanks everybody for coming. David, great haircut. It's always nice to see a fellow. But look, really thankful for Kingscrowd to have us here. It's really exciting to be able to present to the community. We're really excited about Kingscrowd in general, not just because of the community, but because Kingscrowd loves us by being a direct investor. They scored us 4.9 out of 5, which I think is pretty significant. We're also partnered with NVIDIA, which is really special for us because it gives us access to some of their compute. It's an early and very prestigious acknowledgement from one of the market leaders that what we're doing as being an AI health tech company built for these employer health plans is really spot on for not just where the market is going, but for where proprietary data sets are really going to take us in the future. So, TMA, let me blow this up a little bit for everybody. What do we do? At the end of the day, we save employers money on complex genetic disease patients. All right. We make it very, very easy for them to do this. They send us their claims data basically in any format. We can clean it up. We'll analyze it. We analyze all of the claims that come through. We create actionable level reports for their care teams, for their HR teams and CFOs to make decisions on. Once we get approval, we go off and service those patients very, very quickly. What normally takes one of these patients 7 years to go through, we can deliver the same sort of treatment guidance in 12 weeks. And that creates real results, both from a health standpoint, but also from a financial standpoint for these employers and health plans and commercial insurance. And so really at the end of the day, what we have done is created a financial mechanism that allows employers and insurance to do the right thing for families so that families get access to the healthcare that they need. We also bundled this with what is effectively a fairly innovative commercial model for the healthcare space. Most of these companies have to pay what's called a PEPM. It's a per employee per month. Think of it as your subscription for your Netflix, your Disney Plus, right? Like, you know that you have lots and lots of these streaming services. Employers have the same thing. They hate them. They cost a lot of money. A lot of people don't use them. We don't do that. So we enable employers to take us on at a no risk basis. We only charge when we deliver results. So employers get 100% utilization. It's enabled us to scale very quickly. We started selling this product this year. We touch about 500,000 lives right now. We've got 11 million lives in our customer funnel. Now, just for some context here, like everybody I think knows both on a granular level, but also from what we see in the headlines, that healthcare costs are just skyrocketing across the board. And this just means that employers in general, for better or worse, are desperate for anything that's going to help them save money. Now, that's because to a large degree, 1/10 of those members on those healthcare plans cost a lot of money. They drive most of the cost. That's because they have a genetic disease. These are kids who are going to go into the, well, they start as children, they go on for their lifetime, but they're going to go into the hospital a lot. They're going to need specialty care, a lot of it. They're going to need referrals. They just need a lot of care early and often, and that becomes hundreds of thousands of dollars on an annual basis. All right. We know, I'm a biomedical engineer by training, we know from the scientific and clinical community that when we intervene with these kinds of patients earlier, as early as possible, we can drive a ton of savings, right? Not just for the families, but for the system across the board. So on a per patient basis, you're talking about tens of thousands of dollars, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars for some of the extreme cases. On a plan basis, it's millions, and across the system is billions and billions of dollars of opportunity to defray costs. The challenge for employers, like, why don't they do this right now on their own? And it's because they can't, right? These are actual claims data. Claims data is one of the, I mean, it's just a terrible data set. Right? Like, it is messy, it is ugly, there is no standard for it. And employers, especially the mid-sized ones, they don't have the kind of IT or analytics team on board that can help them find these patients in this messy data, and then they just can't do anything about it. And that's really where we come in. When they send us this data, we built AI to go off and find these genetic patients inside of the data. We can find these needles in the haystacks through pattern recognition. A lot of this was built by Dr. Callum McRae at the Mass General Brigham Institute up here in Boston, Mass. We can quickly identify these patients and zero in on really the problem causes. Just identifying the problem, though, is not enough, right? Like, if your mechanic just told you, like, hey, you need an oil change, that doesn't do anything for you. So you have to go off and affect change. And that's really the unlock that we do for these employers. We drive these patients through the advanced diagnostics that they need with a final human in the loop to really deliver professional care guidance. So we're going to go through and not just identify these patients, we're going to create that report. And then someone like a Dr. Paul Carney, a nationally known pediatric neurologist, is actually going to take a look at that patient and deliver professional care guidance back to that family and that local care team. All right. That means that family is going to get the best in class care wherever they are without having to climb on a plane or a bus to get to a center of excellence. And so again, what this means is that when we take that 7-year odyssey and deliver those same insights in 12 weeks, everybody wins. For the employers, they're going to not pay for years and years of specialty and chasing dead ends. That's 60% savings on a per patient basis and a 3x ROI for them. So from a financial standpoint, they love it. But what it also lets them do is give a better incentive, a better benefit for those families because they are getting better care. TMA is so good at this that NABIP, one of the largest certifiers for healthcare benefits and insurance professionals in the country, cites us as one of the key solutions that they recommend to employ. All right. Now, we have a pipeline of 11 million patients in our customer funnel for 2026. All right. We started selling this year. We have interest from plans and reinsurance that goes up to 11 million patients. We can drive 14 billion in savings and capture 3.7 billion in potential revenue. All right. Now, we're not going to get all of that in 2026, but this is what we're looking at for the market because we're focused on these 4 critical complex genetic areas: autism, epilepsy, pharmacogenomics, and cancer clinical trials. and we can drive significant savings on a per patient basis, right, from a high instance. We have a lot of plans to grow and expand beyond this into other kinds of complex genetic disease, but really driving that care intervention and really helping people get management and diagnosis to a diagnosis. That's really what we're frankly phenomenal at. We have a 5 million Series A round open right now. We've taken in almost $3.9 million today on WeFunder. Kingscrowd Capital is an investor, so just want to fully disclose that. One of the reasons I think is that our pre-money is very, very attractive for people who want to buy in. So we're selling 1x Pref Series A shares to people on the CF and the D at about 90 cents a share. It takes us through about 2 years of funding so that we can scale and become effectively profitable and revenue positive at that point. So happy to take questions. Appreciate you sticking around for the last pitch of the day.
Outstanding. Thanks so much, Josh. Really, really interesting. David, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. Great presentation, Josh. Really enjoyed it. And the work you're doing is really important, obviously, for lots of reasons. Just a quick question. I was thinking as you were speaking, what really is the TAM? What's the market size here? And you answered that in a very compelling way. I didn't expect it to be that big, but I'm not shocked now sitting on the back end of the conversation. Why did you pick those 4 particular categories to start with? Is there a through line there? Is there a commonality, a reason that those 4 are nicely nested and that becomes the beachhead, and from there you're able to expand over time? I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I got into this space because my middle child has a rare syndrome. So we're 10 years in. He unfortunately does not have genetic markers. So look, I was a bench scientist at Harvard Med, basically crash landed into the caregiver side of the world. Learned just firsthand how crappy healthcare is for families like mine here. And when we decided to do something about it, we had to focus. So our actual beachhead was genetic epilepsy. And that's because intervening with this kids as early as possible really helps. I mean, some studies show that you can save 30 to 40 IQ points if you get in front of them early on. All right. That's so much more valuable than the hard dollar amount. Although we had to create a dollars-based market approach to make it sticky for insurance here in the States. So really, David, when we look at the opportunity for expansion, and these are the areas that we're expanding into now, we're really stratifying that based on really what is a market opportunity for complex genetic disease patients to get intervention that is both meaningful from a healthcare outcome perspective, but also meaningful from a bottom line perspective for employers, right? And so autism obviously is of high interest right now nationally. The real challenge for a lot of these employers is that there's no real structure or guidance for what charges come through for things like ABA therapy and IAP. So we can bring a lot of care on that. Pharmacogenomics, as the boomers move into the Medicare Advantage population, it's a huge opportunity for intervention because most of these people are on drugs that do or don't work for them, but nobody does the test, right? And then cancer obviously is a place that, as Koios points out, like it's just ripe for intervention. So that's kind of our expanded beachhead, if you will, for 2026. But really the opportunity to bring advanced diagnostics into the healthcare journey from a data-driven decision-making standpoint earlier. I mean, that's the goal of the company.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Outstanding. Question from the crowd, and then we'll turn it over to Teddy. From Scott Kelly, who are your competitors and what would you say is your moat?
The truth is there are lots of other companies who try to create efficiencies at different verticals, right? So you have people and really great companies. I mean, like we use some of the companies as part of our integrated tech stack. So GeneDx, Broad Clinical Labs, right? There are people who are doing fantastic work in the sequencing space. You have people like Arduro Health, Springbuck, who are doing really great data analytics. You have concierge clinical practices. The problem is that everyone there is sort of fighting over the same percentage of the dollar along the way. And at the end of the day, no one is delivering guidance, right? No one is intervening on that care. And so while we have lots of people who I would say are adjacent or are part of sort of the competitive ecosystem, as far as I know, no one is actually doing what we're doing by focusing on this patient set and delivering this kind of care guidance back down to them. So it's a real opportunity for us to be the first mover. And the moat, I think Koios really put it well. Like there have been so many advances in AI right now. The biggest moat that we have is our proprietary data and the way that we can see to start doing really proactive matching of patients to treatments that will work for them. But frankly, I mean, like again, when we talk to NVIDIA, when they let us into their Inception program, right, as a partner, they're not so interested in our software or our AI. Like they even like, we're the AI company. We can do the AI. But the fact that we go off and capture this fundamental training data for how to go off and treat patients in the future, I mean, that's really where the future will take us, right? So the data becomes our moat.
Love that. Teddy.
Yeah, hey Josh, great to see you again. I was curious if you could go a bit more into whether or not sort of the large insurance companies or other kind of large providers have ever tried to do something like this. I know they kind of have historically terrible opt-in rates while yours are very high. So I wonder if you could shed some a little bit more light on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take the softball question all day long. So look, the reality is, um, there are some very big insurers out there. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say who they are, but they have taken a stab at going off to intervene with their complex rare disease patients, right? Rare disease is what these patients used to be called, mostly because they know that these patients cost them a ton of money. The problem is when your large commercial insurer calls you up and says, "Hey, we want to sequence you because we think there might be something wrong with you." Nobody takes that call, right? Like I don't even open my letters from my insurance company. So, they had a less than 1% opt-in rate. And I'm happy to talk through this directly with anybody who has questions. We have a 90% opt-in rate for the families that we offer our interventions to. And that's because we have the trust. We've done the work. And frankly, I can speak to it personally, right? So people know that we're here for the mission. Like my mission is to help families. We just do it in a way that drives a financial issue for customers. Um, so that's really the opt-in rate. And then Teddy, sorry, there was a first part of your question that I want to make sure that I don't miss.
That was just if any other sort of large insurers or large players have tried anything like this. Yeah.
Yeah, the trick is that so you have layers of insurance, and I don't want to get too down a financial wonk rabbit hole on this thing, but when we think of health insurance, we think of the Uniteds, the CVSs, the Aetnas, right? But there's a whole nother layer of the world called reinsurance or stop loss insurance, and that's the financial stopgap to people who have to overspend on what is the standard health insurance platform. So if you become one of these expensive patients, your health insurance company has an insurance plan to make sure that they don't spend too much money. And we help those reinsurers and those stop loss insurers basically get control on dollar one of the spend. And that's something they've been looking to do for 30 years, right? Without success. So all of a sudden we become really a change agent for the whole way the financial mechanism can travel down the pipeline to help patients get the care they need, right? So we've really tried to align all of these points along the system in a way that frankly, according to the feedback we're getting, we're doing pretty well.
Outstanding. Thanks so much, Josh. Well, this was terrific. We're gonna turn on the poll here to get folks' votes on what was your favorite pitch or company of the day that you're interested in investing in. And as we do that, Teddy, David, would love to hear your thoughts on the pitches you saw today, what you liked, maybe what you didn't like, or concerns you have.
I liked all the pitches. I mean, I think that it's not easy for those of you who are founders or have been in that seat. It's not easy in these sorts of circumstances to come in and give a short pitch, which is what these were. You're naturally excited and enthused about what it is that you're promoting and what you've poured your life into, and it's hard to distill it into such a short period of time. I respect all three for doing so. They hit the high points. I think in these sorts of situations, it's always easy to say, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? But of course, they didn't have 90 minutes. And I would suspect, based upon the demonstrated competence of the three of them, that they've got good answers to all of those next level questions. So as a taster, I think all three did an excellent job.
Awesome.
Yeah, totally agreed, David. Each one of the founders that presented today, I did have a hour call with and kind of grilling them for all the little details like you mentioned, going back and forth. So I agree. All three of them did a great job in sort of distilling key high level points, traction, and sort of the real defensibility behind each startup. I think all three, they're all, even Macrovey, like it is, artificial intelligence has elements of that, and Koios and TMA as well. And I think when you do have an AI company, really diving into your defensibility around data is the most important. And I think both did a great job in kind of showing, yes, we are in an age of AI where software is, getting commoditized. Anyone can build it, but the real defensibility comes in having unique data that can inform the training of your models and really lead to a sticky product. And yeah, all three of these companies really like them. Glad they were able to make it today. And yeah, I think it was great.
For me, I think a big thing is, people actually paying you for your service is where the rubber meets the road. And like, that's the best, like, proof is in the pudding that what you have, there's really something there. And each and every one of these founders here today actually have paying customers, and are driving real traction in their business. And there's a lot to be said for that. And while we can't say the valuations, which is a silly rule of Reg CF, I felt as though each one of these, for where they are in the life cycle and the journey, were fair and reasonable and thoughtful with their valuations, which I think is really great as well. So yeah, really interesting investment opportunities. Hopefully you learned something today. Hopefully it helped you, make a decision about whether or not you want to invest in any of these deals. And hopefully it helped curate, you finding deals that are really interesting to you. So just want to say one more thanks to David for being here today. David, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for your insightful and thoughtful questions. Definitely check out Pacaso.com. And thank you to everyone for participating, for your questions, and for the wonderful pitches today, to all the founders who were here. And to finalize it here, we have a winner. Koios Medical won by 1 vote. So congratulations to Koios on winning the pitch competition today. But terrific job to everybody. Thank you all for attending. And we hope to see you on future events. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Take care now.